I first became involved in 16th of April 94. I was in the farm ute and I had the radio on the FM band and I picked up our station. That was the day they started. And when they came to a sponsorship break, it was Tonkin's Sports Store and Avondale Deli. So I says to myself, that's got to be Victor Harbour. Well, time went by and it didn't take long and I tracked them down and I paid a subscription. In those days they called it subscription funded community radio, and they were broadcasting from upstairs in the Grosvenor Hotel. Well, it didn't take long and they had me on the committee or the board, and I used to go to meetings. Meetings were often in the Avondale Deli because the proprietor was our treasurer. See, along the way I'd learnt and done what you call live sound. You know, with bands. Could be keyboard or guitars, and that was my background. That helped me do behind the scenes stuff with the radio. When Brown Hill, our transmitter site, before that became digital, and we had nobody else, Ken said, look after the hill.
What did that exactly mean?
Well, if we went off air, I'd go up there. And usually I'd ring up Australian Satellite because they supplied us with the equipment. I'd ring them up and they'd talk me through on the phone from Brown Hill down to where they Thiberton. There were often times when I couldn't get things going, so I'd load up the equipment in my ute and I'd go down to Australian Satellite. They were on Port Road near Coca-Cola. And I used to go around the back. I'd go around the back and get a park where it didn't inconvenience anybody, and then in I'd go. It wasn't long and I became a household name down there. They'd go, Phil, what's happening?
When the station first broadcast, I'm led to believe there was a caravan up the top of the hill there they used to broadcast from.
Well, that was another caravan that Ken got a loan of from Mike Sharp, but it was on what they call Kirby Hill. Kirby Hill is a little bit further north from Brown Hill. And there was a tower there, and see, we had John Smith with us in those days. And Smithy put a thing up on the tower, and then they were on air. That was the day they started the first broadcast of live local footy from Encounter Bay Oval, and they didn't have much equipment, but they used a mobile phone, which was as big as a brick.
Why did we change from Kirby Hill to Browns Hill?
Brown Hill did a better job. It was a shade higher.
We piggybacked off this tower, did we?
Yeah.
And then What, you built this new one?
Well, I built it.
That must have been a pretty big job.
I did it back home on the farm because I could weld and
And then how did you get it from the farm to the site?
well, Jeff Farmer was helping a bit, and I had a front end loader on the tractor and I could pick it up and stick it on the ute. On the ute, out by the front bumper bar, I had a framework up, and out the back of the ute I had a framework. So you could put it on there and it would stay there, tie it down, went from the farm up to Brown Hill. When the tower was ready to put up, we got a crane boy from Goolwa, and he didn't charge us. We advertised his business for so many weeks. See, that's Ken's department, you know. And then when it come to digging some holes for the concrete and that, I went and saw Chris Doyle, because he was on Waterport Road. He was a real good bloke. So he came up there with his tip truck and whatever. He dug the holes for the new tower. And in those days we could still get ready mix from some people in Port Elliot. So anyway, when it was all done, we didn't have to pay the crane boy. Doyley reckoned, I'm not going to charge you anything, I've enjoyed it so much, it's been such good fun, I'm not going to charge you. So he didn't. Well, after a while, we had it at one of our meetings in the Avondale. Ken said, we're pretty new out there. We've got to get our name out there. Well, by then we had the caravan, because Margaret and me had bought it. Ken said, Paech, you got a farm ute. You tow the van. We got to get out there. So I'd get one or two helpers, if I could get them, from the station. And we went to Yankalil Agricultural Show. We go to Strathalbyn Show, Port Elliot Show. In those days, McLaren Flat had a show. So we'd go to those 4 shows. And when you're going down the road in the street parade, you get on the phone to the station and tell them what you're doing. And then in the background they could hear a band playing or bagpipes or whatever. That would come through, you know. Well, then the next one we did, McLaren Vale had what they call the Wine Bushing Festival. Well, there we were, media, bottling competition, and mingling with Adelaide radio and TV people. And to their credit, they didn't put us down, they'd talk to you like normal, and they were really good old days. We were broadcasting from upstairs in the Grosvenor, and then we moved down to the theatre building, and then following that we went across to the lolly shop, And then, typical, the hierarchy and others said, oh, there wasn't enough parking. So then we came round here. And when they went looking at this, they whistled me up. Can I check the line of sight thing from here to Brown Hill? And see how we got this one, an old retired Anglican minister, he bought the place, this corner house. He bought it and he said we could have it. Have it rent free, and then when he dies we can have it.
What sort of music does Phil Paech like?
Well, it started off when I was about 8 years old. I had a leaning towards country. Because my mum would have an Adelaide station going on a Saturday morning. I think it was the old 5AD. And you get Hank Williams and... I used to say to Mum, what was that noise? She said, well, that's the Hawaiian steel guitar. Because Hank Williams had a bit of that in his stuff.
What's been the highlight of that 29 years for you? Is there any one special occasion that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, it's a bit of a thrill. Along the way, we call them Canberra. Canberra changed our frequency number. Because in the old days we were 99.9. Canberra changed it to 90.1. So on midnight at a certain date, we were going to be 90.1. So I didn't get excited. I just lay low.
Under the radar.
Yeah. Well, the hierarchy started stressing out. And, oh dear, it's going to cost us money, and oh, mamma mia, we can't afford that. And so, typical me, I went down to Adelaide one day, and I went in and saw Australian Satellite. I went around the back, and they go, Phil, what's happening? I said, Canberra are changing our frequency number. From midnight so-and-so date, we're going to be 90.1. And what's involved? And they said, oh, come here. And they had stuff on the bench, you know, equipment. They said, have a look here. One piece of equipment called the exciter. It had little numbers on it, like the old cassette days. There was about 4 numbers. They said, see this? I said, yeah. They said, when you get home, sharpen up a piece of wire, or you can use a compass point, and you tickle those numbers up until it's 90.1. And I said, and that's it? And they said, yeah, no cost, I said, well, thank you very much. So then I didn't make a big noise, but I told the hierarchy that at midnight that night we can go up the hill and change it up there. I didn't tell them too much. So off we go. There's about 3 of us in one car, and they would have put their radio on the new 90.1. That's the car radio. And then, close enough to midnight, I fiddled around and changed it, and they said, "It's working!" That's a thrill and a half. It's a real thrill because it didn't cost any money and we could do it ourselves. I mean, that was incredible.
Have you seen any other major changes in the station over those 29 years?
Oh, well, in the old days we played vinyls as well as cassettes and CDs. And see, while you got a CD going, you can cue a vinyl, you can cue a cassette. So you had those 3 options to put to air. The sponsorships in those early days were all on cassette. And Smithy'd do it, and sometimes I'd do it. You'd take off the lead tape so that the cassette started straight away. So you'd have your sponsorships on cassette. So you'd put them in. I'll play sort of 2 in a row, take them out, rewind them, like that.
Did the cassette have multiple sponsorship?
Only 1 per cassette.
When I first joined this radio station, they said you have to listen to Phil Paech's weather report because sometimes Phil wouldn't get the information and you'd tell them what?
I'd tell them I can't locate the weather, so they better have a look out the window.
For the weather forecast. And when the weather forecast was for strong winds, you used to say something else too, didn't you?
I used to say you'll need a Besser block by the door of the Outback Dunny. They were good old days, the days at Galway. Most of them would wave at you. Several would come along with a coffee, and several would come along with a chocolate. And I'd say, look, I don't expect that. And they'd say, no, but we're happy with what you're doing. So, you know, people who know me will come up to me and say they love my programs. And sometimes I'll tell them, right from young, when I'm doing a program, I avoid doing the things that irritated me as a listener.
What sort of things?
Sometimes people on air, they'll yabber a lot. Well, there's no need for that. So I avoid doing the things that irritate me as a listener.
You're no longer doing radio. What's Phil's life about now?
See, they talk about lung capacity. My lung capacity at the moment is very low. So I get puffed out doing nothing. I'm just not real well. And I'm almost 80, so I take it pretty quiet.
Well, Phil, you've certainly been an asset to Happy FM over the years that I've known you. You will come in here and fill in at the drop of a hat any time someone has been unable to do a shift. I know Carmel's been on the phone to you. I can't ever recall an occasion where you've said no.
In my young days, I learnt to have a servant attitude. So, you know, when they ask you to help or do something, you don't go, no, I don't want to do that. Nah. When they ask, you go, yes, I'll do it. Because it's that servant attitude.
Where did you get that from?
Oh. Well, it was actually in a church environment. You know, it's good.
Do you still enjoy listening to music?
A bit.
How would you like to be remembered?
Well, that I was good-natured and I did what I could to help.